Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Somos Mas, the official podcast of Somos Mas NM, and your source for the latest news and notes on New Mexico United and the New Mexico Runners. Joining us this evening, my name is Seth Biddle. Joining us, we have got Jacob Terrell, David Weesey Carl, and David, who's our extra special guest?
Sorry, that was not expected and really good timing. This is Henry. He wants to be on the podcast.
It was perfect timing. That's what made me laugh so hard. We've been on waiting to go live for 15 minutes now and not an appearance. And then the moment we go live, bam, there's Henry. Oh, that was funny.
Oh, that is awesome. Very great timing. Thank you guys all for being here. We've got not a lot of actual club news to get to this week. We will talk a little bit about the open tryouts last weekend. Before we get into things too deep, Christina hopefully will be joining us here shortly. We do. I think should we wait for Christina on that part?
She's not going to make it after all, so
okay.
we can announce an hour. Hold off until next week when she's here. Whatever.
We'll go ahead and announce then. So first thing at the top of the show, we do want to congratulate and welcome Christina. Christina, we had a discussion with her last week. She is officially the newest full-time member of Somos Mas. We're super excited to have her. I mean, you guys have given us a lot of great feedback about Christina, and we can't be happier with everything that she's brought to the table. So Christina, unfortunately, like Jacob, just bowed out. So she will hopefully be back with us on the next show, but we do want to welcome her officially as a full-time member of Somos Mas. Before we get to our special guest this evening, or our other special guest this evening, we did have a little bit of news coming out of the New Mexico Runners camp this week. As we mentioned, I believe, well, I don't know. It happened after the show last week. That's right. Head coach Steve Femoletta stepped down from the Runners after almost 5.5 seasons with the club. That was on Friday of last week. So family stepped down. Unfortunate to see that happen. I mean, obviously the runner season had not been going well. The club then went on the road to Wichita, we're home against Wichita. I do apologize, and lost to Wichita by a final of 15-6. But the club, in their search for a head coach, did make an announcement and held a press conference earlier today to announce Brian Weems as the new head coach of the New Mexico Runners. If you're not familiar with that name, Brian Weems is currently the girls soccer coach over at Rio Grande High School. In the press release issued by the club, Brian will continue to work in that role with Rio Grande. He's a local name. He's been around for many, many years. His coaching career has featured stints at Belen, Sandia, as well as Rio Grande, and has been named the district high school coach of the year 6 times since 2007. So I know there was some concern because the initial report from James Yodice was that Brian would be leaving Rio Grande entirely to pursue this opportunity. But I think a lot of people were happy to see that he would be continuing because, I mean, right now it's not soccer season. So, I mean, there's no reason he couldn't do both. But I know, like I said, I know there's some people that were upset about that, about the potential of him leaving, but no, he's going to do both. So, I mean, Jacob, what do you think about this? I mean, obviously, Fami is a well-known name within the community, been with the Runners since their inception. And, a bit of bad luck. And the fact they've never really been, truly competitive in the M2.
Yeah, I mean, we've had Coach Steve on a couple times. He's always treated us really well. We saw him play a little bit last year. Really endured himself to the fans and everything. And so sad to see him go, but like you said, just could never really get a foothold there. And so a change was possibly needed, and we'll see what happens with this change, and hopefully they can turn it around on the pitch. Is it a pitch?
It is still a pitch.
Okay. And then we'll see. I'm glad that they made it early enough in this season that maybe they could turn it around a little bit this year and see what they got. But it's exciting. So.
Yeah, 7 games left in the Runners season. They are 0-5 currently. I mean, it's not outside of the realm of possibility that they could go on a run here and make, a potential playoff berth, but they've got their work cut out for them, obviously. The sixth place club in the Midwest and West region, the Alex Rest, are only 1-2. So they've only played 4 matches, which is, the Runners still have quite a bit of a season left to go. So best of luck to them. We'll hopefully talk to Andres and Coach Weems again throughout the season. And hopefully they can turn it around, like you said. So, all right, folks, the one that you've all been waiting for, our special guest this evening, sporting director from New Mexico United. And it's, I guess, officially second stint with the club. Yeah, you've been since you come back. Itamar Keinan. Itamar, thank you so much for being on the show. Jacob and I are lucky enough to talk to you week in and week out at the pitch. But we're happy to have you on the show here tonight.
Thank you, guys. I'm excited to be here, and thanks for having me, Jacob and Seth. I hope my delay, David was able to cover.
I did not explain that it was completely my fault. I sent him the wrong link, and then I copied a link and accidentally sent him the Omega Ball link that we were talking about before the podcast, and now he's finally here. So it's completely my fault.
Accountability is part of what we do.
There we go.
Thank you. No, but seriously, so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me, guys. I've been a while. I've wanted to join you, and one thing I can promise, however, is there's not going to be any pit leaks tonight, and David is here to make sure that it doesn't happen.
And by the way, Itamar watches your show as well, because Itamar and I have talked about things that have been on the show in the past, and I'll be like, oh, so I was watching a United podcast last night, and he goes, oh, Somos Mas. And I was like, yeah, Somos Mas. So good.
Well, I knew he did because towards the end of the season, I was talking to him on the pitch, and we were talking about the roster and what I wanted to come back and stuff. And I said, well, I just want everybody to come back. And he was like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, of course. And he's like, you've been a little low on Gloucester the whole time. And I was like, yeah, you watch. Fair enough.
And Jacob, and my response was
that he was a very, very important part of what we do. And
nice.
But I've noticed, Itamar, we're here now on January 21st.
Oh, here it comes.
And still don't know what's going on with Gloucester. So I'm not asking. I'm just pointing it out that you said he was important and he's still not here.
David, how should I answer that?
You should probably leave that one alone. I think we've got here's the thing, guys. There's a lot of, and Itamar can explain this a heck of a lot better than I can, but there's a lot of roster building still to be done.
Of course. Yeah.
And Chris is an incredible player. We love Chris. And like I said, a lot more to be done. A lot of announcements still to come. Itamar and I were talking about this earlier today. There's some announcements, and this is not spilling any news or anything like that, but there's some announcements that we have players ready to go, ready to announce, but we're waiting on approvals. And sometimes that process takes a long time. It can be the federation level, it can be the league level. So we're ready to announce a few of them, and we're just waiting on those last approvals, and we'll get them out.
It's coming up.
Yeah. We'll get into more of that later, I'm sure, with not looking forward, but looking to what has already happened this offseason and stuff like that. But I want to start, if it's okay with you, Seth, with your kind of background, Itamar. We knew that you were director of player personnel back in 2021, and then you come back in 23 about the same time that we're looking to hire Quill. And but before that, what have you done? I know you spent 20 years as players and coaches and all this. I just want you to talk about yourself, which I know you'll do good at.
Well, it's a long story. How much time do we have?
Got it. As much time as David will let you stay.
All right. Well, so a little bit of my background. Originally from Israel. I grew up over there. Played in all levels of youth to professional ranks ish, and then at some point some injuries, etc. And David might like this one because I know he's an Arsenal fan. So the way I put it back then is, if at some point in my trajectory I wasn't going to be the next Yossi Benayoun, I'm going to be looking for other avenues and see what else can I do in with this soccer path. So around I was 23, 24. I know it's quite old for college age, but I had an offer to come and play college in the US, and got a scholarship to go to a place called West Texas A&M. It's a small school in next to Amarillo, Texas, and I landed there. I was couldn't believe when I first landed there. I was like, "What have I done? This is the biggest mistake of my life." And long story short, it ended up being the best decision of my life. It was unbelievable, and played there for 4 years. Got my became the GA to get my MBA. So spent 5 years there. Met my wife, who was also Natalie, who was also a soccer player for WT, and she's from Dallas. Kind of naturally moved to Dallas after that. Started my own agency. I wanted to stay in the game and needed to find a way to do what I love most, and combined both passions of business and soccer. And there was no better way for me. And that started kind of like a journey of a decade, which is crazy to think about now. But slowly but surely, it was piece by piece by piece. What I love about this story, guys, as crazy as it may sound, I had my little successes along the road, but remember what I said about Yossi Benayoun? And when I was like, if I'm not going to be the next Yossi Benayoun, within a year of me being an agent, I was sitting with Yossi Benayoun in the MLS headquarters in a meeting, trying to bring him into the US. So crazy how life can work that way. And I ended up actually bringing him an offer from Orlando City in the first year of their existence, which unfortunately didn't take. But that opened the door for so many things for me. And then over that decade, I represented players in MLS, USL. I've been part of a lot of the transfers that were made during that time between Israel, US, vice versa. So, and then somewhere along the way in 2021, and back at the time, whether you guys know it or not, I had nice and New Mexico United. I've had during that time Kalen Ryden, Will Seymour, Christian Nava, and Harry Schwartz. So me and Troy developed kind of a very good relationship, and then one day just called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, is joining the club side something that could be of interest for you?" And right away, I'm not lying. Like my body just answered, and right away I knew. And I was already hooked on New Mexico United and fascinated by everything that was happening here. And right away, my answer was, I was like, "Yeah, let me think about it." But I knew inside, like, that was it. Like, that's what I wanted to do. So here I am, 3.5 years later. Yes, there was a short stint in there. I was out, but very, very happy to be here. And kind of long answer, but that's kind of the story.
No, that's great. That's what I was looking for. Can you talk about that stint where you weren't here at all, or?
Yeah. There's some personal stuff
Okay.
was going on, and I was off. I was doing few other things, and then mid-season in 2023. Yes, mid-season 2023. As the transition was going on, and it looked like Zach was out the door and going to join Troy in New York, Peter called me and said, "Will you come back?" And it was just the right time and the right moment, and I was like, "Absolutely yes." So very, very, very happy that I did, and very happy that I got to go on the amazing ride that we've had over the last year and a half.
So with your title of sporting director, that I know you've been a big part of the coaching searches. You also bring in players and speak to what all that job entails, what your favorite parts might be, what your least favorite parts, like doing a podcast with us two locals. What's that like?
First, I love doing the podcast. So first, the job is overseeing all the technical side, everything that relates to the soccer side of the club is what I'm overseeing. Whether it's coaching stuff, player personnel, negotiations, contracts, absolutely everything that has to do with the soccer side, I oversee that. And I think that the part that I love the most is how. And sometimes it's overwhelming, like, just honestly, but at the same time, it's how incredible it is to build that puzzle that in the off season you don't know what's gonna look like, and then see it come to fruition. This is a big part of why I wanted to go back to the club side, or wanted to go to the club side, is when you grow up as part of a locker room, being part of like a soccer team, like you miss that piece of the competitiveness, and that's why I decided to join. But now that I've been on the club side for a while, this is the most exciting piece. It's you're building a puzzle, you have no idea what it's going to look like, and there's so many variables that go into the off season, and you think something might happen and it's not happening, or vice versa, and then seeing it all come to fruition, and seeing again, there's highs and lows and ups and downs, but this part is the thing I'm most excited about every single time. And Peter always, he knows me well by now, and when I'm like, man, like this might not happen, or this happens, or this can, and he's like, man, this is when I know you're at your best. You just love to do that. So, and he's not wrong.
I want to ask you, coming into this offseason, obviously you've got, Coach Quill departing right at the end of 2024. I'm assuming at this point you have some guys already either under contract who have signed for 2025. Without knowing who the future head coach is going to be, how do you start to build that roster and to try to make it into one that can be shaped, or find a coach to come in and mold what he wants to the players that you've brought back?
What a great question, Seth. So there's an identity as a club that I have to lead, right? Like there's ideology in what we want to do and how we want to play that I'm looking for when I look for a head coach. And I said that when Eric came in, and there was some when I'm in my research and how I go back and what we were looking for an exciting style of play. We're looking for more attacking minded play, more possession oriented style of play. And that's kind of like the personnel and players that you're looking for, right? So Eric departing, and we were not, that was not a shock, not a total surprise, but at the same time a surprise. I'll be honest, I was thinking to myself back in October, November, I'm going, oh, this is going to be the easiest offseason of all time. We're doing really well. I think I know what 3-4 pieces can take us to the next level. And then offseason soccer, as crazy as it is sometimes, everything changes and you got to react. So, but the identity cannot change. So when you go into that search of a coach, you go, who's out there that can resemble and start and build on what we were doing so far and take it to the next level. So on player personnel side, there's it's a fine line of, I kind of have an idea of the identity of how we want to play, and if there's somebody that just hits that, you got to go for it, right? Whether you have a coach or not, You just have to do that. And a great example for that is, for example, Luis Fernando. But then again, when you go to the search of the coach, you go, okay, who can? So then this is where Dennis became the guy for us, and so appealing. And you guys watch Vegas, I know you guys did, and you guys saw what even they did. And it's not throughout the whole game, but over 2 games that they played against us at the lab. They're so possession oriented. They're so attacking minded. And to me, that was one. Hi. Once I knew that was a possibility, to me, that was a no-brainer, and we had to go for it. Does that answer it?
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. Sorry, I've got a bit of a head cold, so I'm trying to let Jacob take the lead on a lot of these. But no, that's great, because I think for a lot of folks that don't have the interaction with you or with David as we do, because we get to pick your brain and have conversations and talk to David about the inner workings of announcements and how things look and player injury status, all that type of stuff. I think it's really good for everyone to kind of get an idea of how you see the offseason going and how you need to find pieces that fit into what you want to do.
Yeah, no. And again, this is there's a very clear idea and identity, and there's also a side as a sporting director, you want to respect the next head coach. So you try. There's certain elements, and again, I'm just trying to give you some insight, but there's certain elements you go, I'll hold off. I'll hold off on this player, right? The players consistently get presented to you, and you go, you watch, and you go, okay. But there's some guys that you go, this is the guy. So you just attack it and you go for it. But then there's other guys you're like, okay, we got to wait for the head coach, make sure there is a good match. The best decision making is always in collaboration. It's always when both the sporting director and the agent and the coach can agree on a player.
But you mentioned, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here, Itamar, you and I had talked about Luis Fernando as a player you wanted to work with for a long time, right?
Yeah. So Luis Fernando is somebody that I've actually represented, and I've known him for a long time. So he checks all the boxes, both from stylistically, he's incredible. Like he is individualist. He's just fun to watch. The guy can do things that nobody else can do. And then the mentality piece. He is a warrior. He is a hard worker. There's no coach. All right, I'll let you guys in. As I was telling, when we were bringing Dennis, Fernando was actually kind of almost done, like and come to find out, Dennis had him on his short list of players he wanted. It doesn't get better than that. So yeah, he's somebody I wanted to work with for a long time.
So you've mentioned new coaches. You're part of the 2 coaching searches that we've had most recently with bringing in Quill and now bringing in Sanchez. What are those coaching searches like? How long is that list to begin with? What's the process of whittling it down? Specifically with Vegas, like what was that like, since he was already under contract and like, I mean, I sent you a list of names that I was interested in to see if I could get any kind of feedback, and me and Seth.
How did that go?
It didn't go well. Me and Seth talked. We listed off names. I probably, between conversations with Seth and the other guys and Christine on the pod and then fans, probably listed 15 names, and Dennis Sanchez was not one of them. Not because he's not an exciting hire, but because they had just built this thing in Vegas from the ground up, and I thought Vegas would be crazy to even contemplate letting him go. So how does the search in general happen, and then specifically for Sanchez, how did that come about out of kind of seemingly out of nowhere for us, anyways?
First, I have to say we are so lucky to be in a position where as soon as Eric's departure was announced, and even a little bit before when rumors were going on, my phone, My wife thought this that I'm crazy. Like, this is insanity. My phone was blowing up like it never have before. If I would put my phone down for 3 seconds, I had 17 missed calls and 200 messages.
Were they people wanting the job?
Yes.
That's awesome.
So this is credit to the organization. This is credit to Peter. This is credit to David. This is credit to Ron. This is credit to everybody who works here, who built a foundation of and a place that everybody has a desire to come into. Some, like, in the scope of USL, literally everybody wanting to come to New Mexico United, and even internationally and beyond. So the search is an interesting thing, but the reality is, in my mind, I've already kind of narrowed it down to, I would say, I had 5 candidates that I strongly wanted to pursue and see if there is a path. Dennis is somebody I've known for a while. I've known him for about 5-6 years, and seeing his growth within the coaching ranks and how he's following his journey pretty closely. When I had an idea, listen, I'm not gonna get into why and why not, and Vega, this is their business. But as soon as I knew that there is a possibility, I was going to explore it. So, and I'm glad we ended up with him. He's unbelievable, young, talented, ambitious, and I'm constantly talking about, and he's actually tired of hearing me saying that, but I talk about our club being a club of climbers. To me, that means, like, it's people that we have to find guys. And I take so much pride in the fact that our last 3 head coaches are now in MLS. We want to do it for coaches. We want to do it for players. We want to be a platform of growth to provide opportunity. And Dennis is certainly right there. So, yeah, I mean, I'm excited to have him. He's somebody I see as a climber, and that's why he was so attractive to us.
And when Itamar tells you that the phone was ringing off the hook for people who wanted this job, I have zero to do with the technical team. Like, I work with the technical staff, of course, but I don't have any say over technical staff decisions. I don't have any say over players or coaches. And I forwarded Itamar probably 300 emails. And it's just people reaching out to me saying, hey, is this, can I be considered? Is this available? Here's my resume. I was like, sure, I'll send it to Itamar. And like, it's some of the names you would recognize, some of them you would absolutely not. Some of them I've never heard of and will never hear of again, I'm sure. But when Itamar tells you, like, this is the most desirable job in the USL, I mean, it was crazy. My inbox was flooded, and I have nothing to do with the technical staff.
I'm assuming, since you guys haven't mentioned any names, you're not comfortable sharing any other names that have reached out or anything like that. All right, fine. I had to ask.
Yeah.
Is it safe to assume Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola were not on that list?
They we interviewed them. They just weren't up to snuff.
That is not the right profile for us.
Yeah, just wasn't the right fit.
Fair. That makes
Look
sense.
at City's recent form; it just wouldn't work.
Well,
and just on Dennis, guys, like, look what he's done with Las Vegas last year.
Mm-hmm.
They announced the team almost at the end of January. We're literally pulling up to us, New Mexico United. We're pulling out to Tucson to our preseason camp, and we see a group next to us just been announced, and it's Las Vegas, and they have literally 55 trialists. Nobody signed, no contract signed yet. And the job to put together this thing within a month to play, and then how the progression of this team and what they look like and the identity this team had by June, it tells you clearly what, like, there is a coach handprint all over this thing. So this is, to me, that says so much about what Dennis is and what he can do with a good group. with even more established good group of guys.
Yeah, I know that, like I said, it caught us off guard, obviously, with it. Maggie, do you want to host?
I
Or do you
think
want
so.
to just chill? Thank you. It caught us off guard because of what he did with Vegas and everything. But that doesn't mean that we weren't excited about it, especially us out here on the pod. Like, if you pay attention to the USL and see where Vegas was 2 years ago to where they are this year, there's no doubt in anybody's mind that Dennis Sanchez had a large part in that turnaround last year. And then they come here and they beat us in the lab during the playoffs, and you can't help but just tip your hat to him and the work that they did. And so having him kind of jump ship from such a successful season over there because he wanted to come here and be a part of what we're building over here, that says more than any picture out there, more than any book out there. I mean, it just speaks volumes. And so,
so two things on that. One, David, we had an event on Friday with the fans, and we had like the documentary,
The Kings of Chaos premiere.
Yeah, premiere. And David, we had a panel after, and David said, I can't remember the question, what it was, and how did Dennis Sanchez ended up here? And my response was, well, David, if you can't beat them, steal them. So that's what we did. But at the same, also what his desire, Dennis really wanted this job. I can absolutely tell you, he was so fascinated by what's happening here and the football culture and the crowd and what we have going on in the community. I think it was the and the people. Those are the things he says. What the people that are around this club and the football culture around this club is what really attracted him to this job. He was very excited to come here. I can promise you that.
And it's something that's I've noticed about Dennis, and I worked with him for just a few weeks now. He's incredibly friendly and genuine. You don't always get that with coaches, right? Sometimes you think of coaches as like tough guys, right? Eric Cole's a tough guy. He was friendly, and I loved Eric. Eric was wonderful. I loved working with him. Incredible. But he was a tough guy, right? Almost like a football coach, kind of, like old school. You guys saw, parts of Kings of Chaos where he doesn't mind getting in your face and telling you like that's not bleeping good enough and all these kinds of things. And I'm not saying that Dennis couldn't do that. I don't know. I've never seen him coach in that way in the little bit I've known him, but he is just he goes up to every single person, shakes their hand and says, I'm Dennis. Not I'm the head coach of New Mexico United. Not any of this stuff, just, hey, nice to meet you. What's your name? I'm Dennis. And it's very genuine and very real. And I've been around a lot of coaches, whether head coaches, assistant coaches, coaches for our team, coaches for other teams. And that is very rare. And it's very genuine. And I can see him already kind of endearing himself to our fans. I think our fans will respond well to somebody who's so genuine. I think I've said to both of you guys, Seth, Jacob, in the past, like one thing about New Mexicans is we have the best, if I can say I'll say BS detectors ever, right? So we know if you're full of it, we know if it's crap. And with Dennis, it's just very genuine. It's very, hey, I'm Dennis. What's your name? Nice to meet you. He wants to know about you. And it's cool to see. Like I said, from a coaching perspective, you don't see that very often. And you combine that with the coaching chops that we're all very confident that he has, and we've seen in Las Vegas. I think we're in store for some really cool stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I can't wait. Of course, living several hours away from Albuquerque, I can't always make it to everything, so I didn't get to meet him at the introductory press conference, but I'm excited to hopefully have him on the pod. And then, of course, media day and the first home match and everything like that. So super excited for that. I'm going to switch gears just a little bit. We talked about the process of bringing players in, the process of bringing coaches in. Just this week, we found out that Nanan Hosu was leaving and going to Charleston. We transferred Abdi to Oakland. We've seen Harry and Nava retire, several other departures. Itamar, from your point of view, like, you get to know these guys, you bring them in, you work with them the whole time they're here. What's it like when they leave? How tough are those decisions? Like with Nanan, obviously, if you watched any one episode last season, you heard me speak poetic about Nanan Hosu and how instrumental he was, I think, to what we do, and just how good of a football player I thought he was. And so, and that's me watching from the 10,000 foot view, not being in the locker room and being with these guys all the time. So how do you handle these losses? What goes into those decisions? Obviously there's a ton that goes into them, but and I'm asking specifically about Nanan because my heart's a little broken, but just in an overall general sense, what are those like?
So listen, some are harder than others, some but what the reality is, when you create those relationships, and they're all, none of them are easy to take. So every time you see it, and whether it's our decision or the player decision, it's not easy, and because you get connected, you get there's a human element to everything we do. We tend to forget that sometimes, right? Like it's a game, it's competitive, we want to win games, but there's a human element, and you get really, really attached and connected to the players. Go ahead, Derek.
I think that United does do a good job of highlighting that human element, though, with the type of guys that we bring in and the type of community that we have around it. And so I think I know a lot of the fans, especially, so I never really watched soccer before 2019, right? 2019 comes, I decide to get season tickets. I go to the first match. We end up drawing, and I'm like, oh, okay, that was cool. Yeah, that was exciting. And then all of a sudden I look around, and on all of the players from New Mexico United are circling the whole stadium, signing autographs, taking pictures, talking to people. I mean, I've seen Brucey have like full on conversations with 6 people in a row. And so I've kind of asked around, I've kind of looked around and seen, and that's more common in soccer than anything else, right? But I still think United goes above and beyond what a lot of other clubs, even in the USL, do. So that human element with the fans, especially, because at the end of the day, me and Seth are fans. Like we're blessed enough to have.
I'm a fan too.
Yeah, like we're all blessed enough to have some kind of connection here, whether it's the media passes or David working for the club or whatever. But at the end of the day, we started off as fans. That's where our hearts are. And so to see the players come in and love on the fans and talk about the fans over and over again. I don't know how many players that I've seen the first time they get interviewed and the question inevitably comes up, like, why New Mexico United? Almost always it's the fans and the culture. And so I think New Mexico does do a good job of highlighting that human element. And I think that's why when we lose guys, the outpouring of support for them on Facebook and social media and everything is way more than any other that I've seen. Like when Nanan left, it was incredibly vocal with people upset about it. And same with Abdi, because they're just good dudes, man. They're just like solid stand-up guys. And then also they happen to be really good at soccer.
All right. So I think there's 2 parts here. So one, it is incredible. Like and we, just to understand, because you're talking about the fans, and we literally use our fan base as a recruiting tool, right? And not only that, but we also every player we talk to, every coach. When I interviewed Dennis, I'm like, what we do and how this club operates, the commitment to the fans. This is the number one priority. We're here for them. So we try really, really hard to emphasize how important it is. Not just, you want to come play in front of the best crowd in New Mexico, but in the league, sorry. But it goes both ways. You can't just enjoy that atmosphere. It goes, are you willing to make this commitment? Is that, and they all, and to me, man, if that's not exciting enough, then they're not here for the right reasons. And we don't want those guys. So we work really, really hard to find the guys that are phenomenal soccer players, but also great people who want to give back and do everything they can to make sure that's reciprocated. It goes both ways. So this is what our emphasis in every single Zoom interview, call, whatever I have. We mention that, and we talk how important it is to our club. It is hard, man. Like, it is hard to see people go, and we can't control every single situation. And we're lucky enough that this year we were in, and we retained a massive piece of our roster that led to the success in 2024. Nanano Su, honestly, wanted him to be here. Didn't work out. Sometimes it's just the way it is, the way the business side of football. It didn't work out. I've done everything we could to keep him here, and it's not always working that way. So he's somebody that I'm as devastated as you are that he's not here, because I think you're right. He's an unbelievable player, but it just sometimes, and as in the business side, as you keep doing and you've been in it for a long time, there's not too much time to dwell either. You got to move on.
Right.
You got to move on.
Well, and Itamar, you've mentioned in the past too, and I'm not gonna. There's no names to name here because I don't even know who the names are. But there's been players, there's been people who we've thought about bringing in, and if they weren't immediately excited about it, they weren't sure. It's like it's probably not the right fit for you, and that's okay. That's okay, right? It's about wanting to be here. Go ahead, Itamar.
100%. Like, listen, like if for us, if and listen, maybe fans, I don't know. I'm just gonna say it because it's just for the sake of transparency. For us, it's if somebody's trying to leverage an offer or make a little bit more somewhere else, then this is not the right place for you. We want people that want to be here because this is the best environment in USL Championship, because this is the best platform you can have, and we not only that, we're also going to help you do. We have the right intentions, and if you are to do that, we're going to help you do that. But you want to be there, to be here, and if not, then you're not the right guy for us, and we're not going to get into battles of offers and five more and that. No, this is not what we're about. We want people that want to be here, and if
we're here to win titles and make a difference in our community. If that doesn't excite you enough, it's probably not the right place.
Exactly. So this is our mantra, and we say it all the time. And every time I get into the situations, you gotta let go. You gotta let go, because there's somebody else that wants to be here, and he's going to perform 10 times better than anybody that doesn't, and other things are motivating him. So listen, man, Harry called me this offseason, said he made a decision to move on, and I'll be honest, like the emotion, I got the best of me. I had tears in my eyes. I've known these guys for so long. I love him. He's a warrior. He's representative of everything that we are, but you can't control people's decisions, and I wish him nothing but the best in his next chapter in life. He's an unbelievable player. He's an unbelievable. He has been an unbelievable part of New Mexico United, and I know it was an easy decision for him, but it happens. This is part of life. So when that happens, you just gotta say, hey, we support you, and we want the best for you, and it's part of the business. So specifically, anybody else you want to bring up, I'm happy to answer. But there's going to be change every offseason, Jacob. It's like I said, it's a puzzle. Things coming up, people are going to leave, people are going to come in, and you want to have some sort of continuation, But at the same time, you got to understand there's a human element, and people seek and want different things, and you got to work with it as long as it works for the club.
I love that you keep bringing up the puzzle and the puzzle piece analogy. One of those pieces seems to be Tomas Pandeka. Talk about the process of bringing him in, getting him acclimated. Obviously we probably had a conversation with Eric about that. So tell us a little bit about that process, bringing him in, and then, for both of you guys, obviously the open tryouts for this past weekend. David, how soon do we get to see Redacted on the pitch? And is there anyone that stood out on Saturday, Itamar?
So first for Pandeka, he's somebody that I've known for a long time. I've watched him in Texas for a while, and when the opportunity, it's part of some things that happen on the business side to bring Thomas on loan for season loan. This kid has everything that we're looking for. So he's unbelievably talented. He's tenacious. He's hungry. And one thing I've in my research, and that was took it over the edge, was when David heard that too, right, David? I've told you that a couple of times. He's the nicest kid you'll ever meet off the field, the biggest smile, but as soon as he crosses the line, it's over. He is a competitor, and he will do everything it takes to win a game. And this is what we want. Those are the kind of players that we want here.
I can tell you, we were only 2 days into training. We had the first day of training yesterday. And I was out at the first day of training yesterday, and he really just immediately looked like he immediately belonged, was right there on the level, really looked quick and exciting, and had a smile the entire time as well, which you want a guy with a good attitude. I mean, he seems like he's immediately fitting in with the guys, both tactically, but also just camaraderie wise. Super friendly guy. I'm excited to see what he can do this year.
And David, how soon can we see Redacted out there?
There you go. So the preseason schedule is going to be coming out here in the next couple days. I guess that's as close as you're getting to a leak. There you go.
I don't know if you know this, but there are people very upset with you guys that it is not out yet, as everybody else are trickling out. And I think it's hilarious that there's that many people upset, but they are definitely a little frustrated with the lack of news coming out as far as preseason and some of the player movement. But
so with regard to the preseason schedule coming out, I mean, these things, you got to remember, it's not like a regular season schedule where there you go, Justin. It's not like a regular season schedule where
it's actually the 7th.
There you go. There's your Itamar leagues. But it's not like a regular season schedule where the league puts it all together, right? And they send you your schedule and this is what you play. With our preseason schedule, we're putting it together match by match, right? We reach out to this club, hey, can you play a match? Can you play it here? Can you play it on this date? And okay, we get one match in place. We got to find another one. Then we got to find another one. It's not quite as simple as just like, okay, this is our preseason schedule. We've got it now. It's locked in. We're putting it out this week. There you go. But it takes some doing on Itamar's part to make that happen and to get matches that, and I'm sure Itamar could dive into this a little more, but matches that will be valuable for us, give us a good challenge, let us see players and how they perform, all these kinds of things. So if you're upset about when the preseason schedule comes out, I think your life's probably going pretty well.
Well, I think it just speaks to the passion that we have.
Yeah, it's great. No, I want people to care, right?
That.
We want people to care.
It would be bad if they were
cares
just
about when the schedule comes out is the day that we're in trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm glad that people want to know that. But like I said, we'll have it out this week, and we'll have some at home too, which will be nice.
Well, we did find out El Paso at home already, so we knew there would be at least one, and so yeah. At the end of the day, I know it's going to come out. I'm not super worried about it, but it has been funny to monitor social media and be like, all right, guys, let's just take it down just a notch. I
didn't know it was such a big issue. Otherwise,
me either.
Yeah. But it's coming up. It's coming up, and we'll have the full schedule, like David said, this week. So,
well, I think the chat is putting out the whole schedule as we speak, one match at a time.
oh yeah,
Yeah, man, we've got some detectives out here, guys. Like they will dig through everybody else's announcements and put it all together before you guys even come close to announcing it.
that's great. And then on the player side, there's so much work, and there's more, and again, David touched on that. Sometimes it's out of our control, right? For my sake, as soon as we sign a player, next day we can announce it. I would have loved that, but there's so much red tape, is how you say it. Like, there's so much things you got to go through. The league got to approve it. The league got to approve to announce. It's got to go to the federation. And so there's so many things that sometimes it's not in our control. Otherwise, it would have been out there already.
So that's something we've certainly had questions about in the past. Can you explain what exactly it means when the league says, pending club and league, or pending league and federation approval?
So actually, pending league and federation approval at that point is probably okay to announce. David, correct? Yeah. So, but that means the league reviewed the contract, and then it's got to go to the federation level, which if the league review is probably okay. So they just put it out as pending. So it's just in case, but they approve it to announce at this point.
So Seth mentioned the tryouts on Saturday. How did those go? I'm assuming with those, you already know some of the people that are going to be showing up. I'm sure they reach out to you beforehand, or there's names that we might semi-recognize. So did anybody, if you can say names, say names. If you can't, don't worry about it. But we're looking at getting some people out of that. It's not, we always get at least one or two. So what were the results of that kind of looking like?
I can dive into that a little bit. I was out there. So when it comes to kind of preseason additions, there's a couple ways that can happen. Obviously, there's signings like we've been doing. That's the obvious one. But we've got obviously open tryouts, and then we have a third way that that can happen, which is trialist invitees, which we do a lot as well. Daniel Bruce was one of those, right? Daniel didn't come to the open tryout. He was invited to come to train with the team, see if he could make it.
And I believe Talon and Herbert last year were both of that ilk. So
correct. Yeah, we've had a few of those. So there's a few different ways that can happen. I would not be surprised, Seth, if in our first preseason match I hit you with a redacted on a live tweet. Wouldn't be surprised by that. Hi, Henry. But yeah, so we had I want to say it was around 55 people at the open tryout, which is bigger than last year, which is great. A lot of those guys who are trying out are local. A lot of them are local, but not everybody. I mean, I think we had a guy come from as far as Montana to try out for the team. So we have, again, a lot of locals, but a few non-locals as well. We have people who currently play in college. We have people who currently play for like NPSL teams or UPSL teams, USL League 1 or USL League 2 teams. All those things happen. We have just local club players who really stand out. There you go, Ford Parker. Love Ford. So we have all different kinds. As far as whether or not or how many of the individuals stood out to the technical staff, I'm not the guy. I mean, I love soccer, but I don't have the eye that a Luke Sanford or a Dennis Sanchez or a David Estrada has, who are out there identifying the players. So that's one I can't answer because I just don't know the answer.
That's fair. That's fair. You mentioned Luke and Estrada and all that. We see a couple of the assistant coaches from last year depart last week. Is that who comes in to replace those? Is that pretty much strictly on Dennis, or are you going to have a part in that too, Itamar? Or is it, like you said, that collaboration work?
It's a mix. Yeah, it's a mix. So, but definitely something me and Dennis are working on and trying to. Obviously, Matt Watson and Nate Walter have been unbelievable contributors to our technical stuff over the Matt for the last year was probably one of the best additions we could have ever had. And then Nate has been an unbelievable part of this club and just the hardest worker person I've ever met. And I'm again, Jacob said this is part of being in soccer. People just, there's other ambitions, there's other things, and people just move into different places and areas, and there's family issues, so many things that goes into it. Now, in terms of how we replace them, yes, me and Dennis currently working, talking, and constantly in talking to new candidates, and already filled one of the positions will be announced soon, and then we're actually looking to add something we haven't had in the past, and it's more like a high performance coach, more on the physical aspect of the game, and that's also something we've been working on and gonna hopefully be done in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's great. With the roster as it sits right now, we've got, by my count, 15 announced players. I'm hearing stuff that one of them is leaving that we already have announced. I'm not going to say who, but how much more shakeup with incoming players, any more outgoing players? What is, at the end of the day, what is your roster amount, and how many of those are kind of already set in stone, and how many of them do we have to work with still?
So there's still movement outward and inward. We have a few more signed players that haven't been announced. And so by my account, we're sitting at 19.
Okay.
David, is that okay?
I mean, it's already done. So there we go.
Yeah, we're live, guys. We can't take it back now.
And no, listen, it's constant moving. Things happen all the time. Clubs may reach out, hey, and maybe there's a transfer to be done and trades to be done. So we're going through that. We, like I said, we have few guys that are currently already done and will be announced over the next couple of weeks. And again, this is like league approval, visas. There's so many things that goes into that. But for the most part, we honestly, truthfully, we almost done. I feel like we're very close to being done. Once the next batch has been announced, this is out of my control. I think we probably 2 or 3 pieces away from being done on our roster build, and I feel really, really good about it too.
You guys have both mentioned, several times that players and coaches want to come here. Obviously, we're doing something right. When you look around the league, Itamar, when you look around, USL League One, League Two, Next Pro, who are some of the other clubs that you see are doing things the right way? Now, obviously, I'm going to be a little bit biased here, being from Georgia. I think Tormenta is doing a phenomenal job down in South Georgia. Now, obviously, we brought a couple guys in from Tormenta that have done well for us. What other clubs do you see that are doing things the right way and really developing players for the next level?
It's a good question. In MLS Next Pro, there's quite a few. FC Dallas is one, and Columbus Crew is another. Hence, we got a couple. The USL League One, and I'm not trying to be. It's more of a. Do you say crapshoot? Like there are very good clubs out there, but you got to just go out, watch, and see who do you think individually, player piece by piece. It's not necessarily club by club. It's like who are players you might think within that league that can make the jump to USL Championship and be actual contributors and make an impact. So unfortunately, Seth, there's quite a few that have done a good job in terms of recruiting talent, but I can't answer and say, oh, this is the club we're looking at. It's more so a broad League One. Okay, who are the guys that can make the jump and come into our league and make an impact right away? I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And I know that if you were to give specific clubs, it might be, giving a little bit of, of inside information. But no, I think it's interesting to look at it from that perspective, though, as looking at individual players rather than what clubs are doing right within their systems. So I think that's an interesting way to look at it, and not something I would have necessarily looked at.
And then within USL, right, like recruitment wise, again, I'm going to go back to the piece of the climbers, right? Who are we and what do we want to, what kind of platform we want to be for players? And there are guys out there that clubs just go out and maybe, and again, I know, I don't know how much we want to go into that, but guys go out there and outbid for players in from certain places that I just don't think it's justified. And if the player choose to go there, and that's okay, right? But we got to stay true to who we are and recruit into our to our strategy of the people and guy, like, listen, we've done it in 2024 and it worked really, really well for us. So there's no reason why we won't continue to do that. So there's going to be clubs out there that's going to go out there, outbid everybody. We have to stay true. We want the right people and we want climbers. I'm going to keep saying that until everybody's tired of hearing that, and people that want to be here, and they want to be here for the right reasons. And that's how you find success. And that's how you find guys. Look at our roster last year. It was, yes, we kept the really good veterans, the guys that we knew are here for the right reasons. And then we added a bunch of younger players. And in this league, and how the grind and how competitive it is and how hard it is to win games, those are the guys that win you games. Those are the guys that put the body on the line when it's the 90th minute and you're 1-0 or 2-1 or whatever the reason, and they're willing to do everything to get it done. And to me, this is the strategy and this is the philosophy behind our recruitment.
One, I think, I'm not going to miss a chance to talk positively about Nanan Hosu, but so you mentioned, 90th minute game on the line. The play that sticks out to me there, the player is Daniel Bruce, right? That guy is a menace, and he does not care about his body seemingly at all during those 90 minutes. And then the play that sticks out to mind was Meow Wolf night last year, which I believe was against Orange County, if I'm not mistaken. And we're up by a goal. We have the ball on our end. We kind of give a bad takeaway or a bad giveaway on our part, and they're taking off, and they've got tons of space. And then all of a sudden, so we were, my wife was videotaping that game for me from behind the goal in the outfield, and we're both watching it. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Nanan Hosu comes from 50 yards away, seemingly, and inch perfect sliding tackle to win the ball back. And from what we could see was save a pretty good chance. Maybe not a goal. Obviously, goals are hard to come by, but a promising chance. And that was the kind of stuff that was the moment that I was like, this is the guy that I'm going to follow right now for the rest of the season. And that's the one play that comes to my mind. But every single one of those players that you brought in last year, I can point to a play with enough time. I can come up with one that they did the exact same thing in some way, shape, or form. And so those guys are the guys that I want to see. And then when we talk about Tomas Pandeka coming in, right? You guys did the club did the Wordle clue, and it was Tomas, and everybody was like Tomas Angel from Phoenix last year. And my first initial reaction to that was almost to vomit. And it wasn't because he was coming from Phoenix, but what I saw on the pitch from him last year was not that attitude. It was not that kind of play. And so I reached out and said, please tell me it's not Angel and it's Pandeka. And of course I didn't get an answer. But then next day it comes up, and I was so thankful for that. And I know from the guys that you guys have already brought in that you guys are going to bring in guys that make those kinds of plays, and not the kind of guys that don't get back. Maybe they're a striker or something like that. Every striker that you guys have brought in is going to get back, is going to help defend, is going to press. And so it's the kind of team that I've heard David talk about this before. Like, you bring in people that represent New Mexico, even if they're not from New Mexico. And that, I think, is hugely important and a huge reason why the club has had the success that it's had with the fan base. And I couldn't be happier with the choices you guys are making with that kind of stuff. One thing that I want to bring up, though, is we talk about contracts and insider trading or insider knowledge and stuff like that. And will the club ever get to where contracts are more public? Or is there any chance like there's a little more transparency there with the USL and clubs as a whole? Or because I know we talked about the injury report last year, David, with we were getting them and then all of a sudden they stopped, and it's like the league doesn't mandate it. It puts us at a disadvantage to put it out when other teams aren't putting it out. Will the USL ever put a mandate out that says you guys have to have more transparency like these bigger leagues that we are a part of? Or do you guys even want that? Or what can we look forward to there or not look forward to if it stays the way it's going to stay?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Jacob and Itamar. I'll let you dive into this in just a quick sec, but you hit your nail on the head there. It's similar to what we talked about before with the with the injury report, right? It's we may be very much in favor of additional transparency, but we can't do it when other clubs are not doing it because it puts us at a disadvantage, right? It's a bargaining conversation. It's and Itamar, you can, like I said, dive into it a little bit more. But if the league were to mandate it, of course, and everybody was on the same playing field, that's the important thing, right? We don't want to put ourselves at a disadvantage. It should be a level playing field for every club. Itamar, I don't know if you want to dive into it a little deeper.
Yes, not much to add to that. Just if we talk less on the medical side and injury report, which again, this is the reason, as David mentioned, contractually, if there's a league like MLS, you can literally go down and put in every single player and know what they're making and what salary, the budget is, and et cetera, et cetera. For us, it's not the case. So there is no real advantage to put it out there. Otherwise, if it was out there, it could actually hurt us. So
right. Do you think that the league will ever make it to where that's public knowledge? Or
it's not a centralized league per se, so I don't see it happening anytime soon. But I wouldn't be opposed to that, to be honest.
I think I'm very much in favor of that becoming a league-wide standard, and I think Itamar is on the same page. It's just, I think it personally, from a media perspective, which is what I do on a day-to-day basis, it gives people something fun to talk about, right? Like, they brought in this guy for this amount, man, they're really investing in this and that, and they care about the midfield, or they need to spend more on the goalkeeper. Great, that's fun. That's talk radio, right? And I'm, like I said, I'm very much in favor of it, but it's got to be across the board.
Yeah, we've certainly talked about it, and we've talked about how we're now working under the assumption that all contracts are one with an option year, which seems to be pretty standard from all the contracts and announcements we've seen, not just from the club.
I think that's a strategy. So, and I don't mind. And all right, so there's a reason, there's a thought process behind it, right? You can go as a club and offer, and clubs are doing it out there, and offer 2-3 multi-year. You hear sometimes the expression multi-year contract, right? Even within USL. And to me, rewarding a player that hasn't been and hasn't done it in our club put us in a risk. Now, you guys have to understand USL budgets, like the resource, like you got to be mindful and you got to protect the club. My job is to protect the club. So I always say, and it's a non-negotiable, unless there is 100% like guarantee, something within that I'm like, okay, this is the guy, right? Maybe one day. But for the most part, the only way to protect the club, yet have the ability to control contract situation is to do it as a 1+1. And now, if somebody came here and performed on in the lab in front of our fans and done an amazing job, they can earn themselves 2 or 3 multi-year contracts. I'm okay with that. But to go out to somebody out there who hasn't done it here, I think puts the club in a big risk, and it's something that's a risk that you can take in yourself.
And two points I want to make off of that. One, we've seen it happen where players have done well in other places and come here and it hasn't worked for them, right? I think of like Romario Williams, for example, right? Loved Romario, but it wasn't the right fit for him. I don't think he excelled to the level that he would have wanted to here. The second piece of that is going back to what Itamar said earlier and has said multiple times, and you've heard me say too, is climbers, right? You want climbers. You want guys to get here in that first year and want to earn that next contract and not just get here on a 3-year deal and say, be comfortable. I've seen that. I see that. I'm an Eagles fan. I've seen that in the NFL, right? Where you have, somebody gets a big deal. You see it in Major League Baseball too, where somebody gets a big deal and they rest on their laurels. You want guys who are here, they're climbing, they want to win, they're fighting for that next contract, they're fighting to lift trophies. And when you see that they can do that, it becomes a different thing. Itamar, am I wrong there?
No, not at all. And Seth, like just when you get to see somebody in your environment do it, and then they come and say, "Hey," then it comes to that point. It's like, now I'm comfortable with that. Now the club is comfortable. We know who they are. We know what they're about, and now we can go ahead and do that. But it's really hard for me to go out and just hand out to, because those the way I use it can be handcuffing in USL environment.
So are those +1 option years club triggered, player triggered, or both?
Club triggered, and then there could be, and that's something we do quite a bit, is there could be triggers in there for them to earn the second year based on performance.
Okay, so it's not just at the end of the season we look at it and see. Sometimes there's stuff that's like, oh, you did this, it already kicks in. That's cool. Okay.
Yeah. And it could,
That kind of brings up another question too, something we haven't really talked about, at least since it happened, was the CBA. For you, Itamar, how did the CBA change things, not only from an agent's perspective, but also from the club's perspective, and now how the clubs are paying players and the benefits that are provided, and the process of signing players?
It's a complex issue for me. There are great things that are happening, and it shows the growth of the league and protecting the players, and I get that, right? Like it's an amazing thing. At the same time, some of it, unfortunately, have prevented opportunities for players, which it's unfortunate. That's the honest truth. I'll give you an example, Seth. Harry Schwartz would have never been a professional player if the CBA was in place in 2017 or 18 when he signed his first pro contract, because he had to come in and prove it on barely anything, right? Nowadays, it's a lot harder from my perspective. Am I going to go take again, sometimes it's going to happen, but am I going to go take a risk? Now there's a minimum contract, right? For example, just one example. So is it better to go take a risk on a guy that's going to earn, maybe there's a pro out there that's been in the ranks for like 2-3 years and going to take just slightly above what the minimum is, or take a gamble on a guy that's never played pro but going to require almost the same amount, right? So this is where I think it's a bit challenging, and it's a complex issue, because I do think it prevented some opportunities from some guys that I would be like, yeah, sure, let's take a look, right? But at the same time, it protects the players, and there's some which I respect and appreciate, and I think it helps for the growth of the league overall, for sure. But those are areas that I always go back to and think, oh man, how many players out there are not getting opportunities because of the CBA now?
And there's another way that it's beneficial, and it has been beneficial for a little bit for us, but I would imagine for other clubs too, is within the CBA, there is a big section about player appearances, right? And we in New Mexico are very big on player appearances. You guys know this. We have our players are at schools all the time and hospitals and doing clinics with kids and all this kind of stuff. Written into the CBA is that players can do up to 10 community appearances per year. And then appearances beyond that become paid appearances. So you pay them additionally beyond what's already in their contract. This incentivizes players to be out in the community more, which is really a good thing. We're fortunate that a lot of the players that we bring in, pretty much all the players we bring in want to be out there anyway. And that's something that Itamar and coach and all these guys are looking for, guys who want to make a community impact. But not every club is like that. And not every player is like that. And so it incentivizes those players to say, all right, I'm going to get out. I'm going to do my 10 appearances so that on number 11, I can make a couple extra bucks, right? So there's little pieces like that. That's just a small example, but there are several little pieces within the CBA that provide for better soccer atmospheres. It's good for the players, it's good for the team, and it's good for the community collectively, certainly.
Well, and we see, like, before the CBA really came into place, you hear horror stories of some of these other USL Championship clubs, USL League One, and whatnot. And I always looked at it kind of without the CBA as almost giving us a leg up, because we always seemed to be willing to go above and beyond what was legally necessary to provide players with a better experience and everything like that. So to me, the CBA, one of the small negative effects for our club in particular seemed to it leveled the playing field a little bit more and brought all the clubs back to where, okay, there's not this club over here that treats their guys really, really good and this club that treats their guys really, really bad. And these guys now have a leg up on these guys. It kind of leveled it all out to where obviously it's just, we've proven that we're still a leg above a lot of other people. But when it first came out, that was one of my thoughts, selfishly from a New Mexico United perspective anyway.
I hear where you're coming from on that. But I would say that two things. One, it's great that this provides for the well-being of players across the league.
Of
right?
course.
Of course.
It's
a
positive. It's a positive for me in general. But it's just, that was the one thing I was like, kind of.
The other positive, in my opinion, that it's been really helpful, because I deal with the CBA all the time, right? Because I'm working with players all the time, and Jules Myers, and who is incredible, she's working with players all the time. The other real positive for me is that the CBA provides definition. There are a lot of questions that I just wouldn't necessarily have the answer to. Man, how should we handle this situation, right? A player has a question about this. A player is doing this or wants to know about that. And man, I just don't know. I don't know the answer to these things. And so the CBA provides, to the best of its ability, and it's not a perfect document and it's constantly evolving and there's new iterations and all that kind of stuff. But the CBA provides some clarity on, okay, this is how you handle this situation. This is how you make sure that players are taken care of in the way that they should be taken care of. This is what the standard is for housing or payment or appearances, and providing those standards allows us to make sure that, one, we're treating players the way that they should be treated, taken care of, but two, that we're taking care of the club. Itamar talks about protecting the club. We're doing all the right things to make sure that everybody's having a positive experience, that the players are enjoying their experience here, that they're protected. It's a positive thing. I think we're all in agreement on that.
Andrew, in the chat over there, has a very good question, in my opinion. Do you guys know how long that current CBA is valid for?
I think the negotiations already started.
Negotiations are underway on a new CBA.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's something I think we touched on it briefly when it first came out, but Seth, kudos to bringing that up, because that is, I think, a great. It just adds to the complexity of Itamar and David's jobs, especially Itamar's, with bringing people in and something that I hadn't thought of either. So, I mean, we could probably go on for another hour if we really wanted to. I don't have anything else necessarily that's pressing. Seth, you got anything else?
I did have one more question. So, I mean, obviously you talk about finding players that fit, right? And you talked about guys that don't have the excitement to want to be here. You talk about guys that you want to bring in that fit the system. Obviously we talked a lot about Nan Hosu and Abdi, guys who really did well for us this past season. One player that came in that did not really hit the mark, and a lot of people's eyes, was Abu Danladi. When you have a situation like this where a player comes in and doesn't perform to where everyone thinks they will. Now, obviously, in Abu's situation, he was dealing with injuries throughout the season. How hard is it to be like, okay, hey, no, we're not going to bring you back, or it's just not working out, and then how do you move on from that and try to find a new piece to fit in?
It's very individualistic. So should Abu haven't worked his bottom off to try and get healthy? If he didn't buy into the team ethos or the collective effort, or if you didn't see him out there, at the gym, working out every day, trying to get better, getting with the group, being a great teammate, it would have been a lot easier at the end of this year to be like, wasn't the right fit. But the reality is, it's just the truth is it didn't work out. I remember vividly. I think I've spoken to Jacob how excited I was about Abu. Like, if it did work out, he would have been unbelievable, because this guy can play football. This guy is talented and exciting. And when he was getting back to rhythm at the very end of the year, we were so hopeful that we're going to see him in the playoff, because we could see glimpses in training of something really, really different, like high level. But it didn't work. That's the reality. And not everybody's going to work out, Seth. That's also the sad reality of my job. I wish I had 100%, not me, but like, I wish there was, for us as a club, 100% success rate, but it doesn't work that way. Again, I'm going to go back to the human element. It's never easy. It's never fun to say goodbye to guys. But when they're buying into the collective, it makes it that much harder. And Abu did. I saw him trying the whole year. So it makes it that much harder. But at the end of the day, you got to move on, and you got to say, okay, let's give an opportunity for somebody else.
Yeah, I think it was the Lubbock match, the Lubbock Open Cup match, when he came back in, and I talked to you right before, or right about the time he was coming in, and you talked him up pretty good. And then, of course, he tweaked an ankle or something in that match. And
he was in tears in their locker room.
Yeah, I imagine it sucks. And so one thing that I hope people that watch and listen to this this conversation, Itamar, is that I hope they realize like how hard your job, or any front office staff, any coaching staff, how hard that job is, both from like the X's and O's portion, but also the human element portion, and having to say bye to these guys, or turn somebody down, or this or that or the other. And so I know that me and Seth, for sure, in the conversations that we've had the last year and a half, or when you were back with player personnel, like, we appreciate everything that you do, everything that David does for us, obviously. And I think with that mindset of bringing the right guys in, you're doing New Mexico proud. And I know that everybody that I've talked to, everybody that I speak with, as far as, the players that are coming in, or that have been here, they love every single one of them. They're super excited for every single one of them. And I personally think that you and Peter, obviously, and the various coaches that we've had have done a great job at representing New Mexico, like I said, through the players that you bring in, even if they're out from New Mexico. So that was the last thing I wanted to say.
I appreciate it, Jacob. I would say that there was a point in time when Eric came in, and we did feel like there was a little bit of a change needed to happen culturally within the group. And it was that mindset that I'm keep bringing up. We need to shift a little bit from comfort zone and guys that are comfortable to guys that are going to give all they got for New Mexico United. And we did, like, you see the process from 2023 to 2024, and you see how we worked on the field. And we're not there yet. We're not satisfied. Like, we have so much more to do. We want to win this whole thing, and we want to bring more excitement and score more goals. And I hear you guys. Yeah, we haven't scored enough. We want to do more on that, more of that. So we're working really hard, and the truth is I couldn't be more excited about what's coming up in the future and this next season and beyond. So I appreciate you saying that. It's not an easy job. There's ups and downs. Sometimes you want something, it doesn't work the way you want, but at the same time, you got to keep moving, and we're doing that, and we're making sure we're bringing in the guys that we feel strongly are going to fit into what we're doing.
That's great. Thank you, Itamar. Thank you, David. Seth, you got anything else? Hey, David, do you have any parting words for us? Any David leaks?
I knew the question was coming. No, nothing that comes to mind. We've got a fun little annual party that we always throw before the season starts. That'll be coming up. Announcement on that coming up here shortly. Look for maybe March 1st. Maybe March 1st. We'll see.
Okay.
I have one quick question for David. David, who are the Eagles going to face in the Super Bowl?
Whoa! There's a guy named Jaden Daniels that wants to have a word said.
Jaden Daniels terrifies me as an Eagles fan.
He should.
But with that said, if we do get by the Commanders, I would much rather. Not much. I'm sick of Patrick Mahomes. I want to face the Bills because even if we lose, which I hope we wouldn't, I can deal with the Bills Super Bowl. They deserve it. I like their fans. I like the team. I like Josh Allen. So if it's not us, I think the Bills.
Fair enough, guys. Well, again, thank you guys. Thank you everybody over in the chat. Josh and Jane, Markless, David, why are you in the chat? You're right here. No, just kidding. Andrew, all the normals, all the regulars, everybody watching, everybody that listens later. I love when we get to be able to pick the brain of people like Itamar and David, and just thank you guys again for coming on. Seth, thank you for all that you do back there as well. Hopefully your voice gets better and you can actually participate a little more next time. No, just kidding. And with that, we'll be back next week, hopefully with some player announcements.
I think so. I genuinely think so. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Talk to the Federation. We're working on it.
All right. So hopefully we've got some more news. I think this week we already kind of covered it. It was more people leaving than people coming in. And so hopefully we get some more excitement next week. And again, thank you guys. And Somos Unidos. See you next week.
Yes. Thank you.